The papered walls of our dining room displayed a plethora of pictures. Pictures of flashy cars, skyscrapers, a famous British university, men in business suits, a sunny beach scene somewhere, and the likes. And in the middle of the rear wall was one of Sir Edmund Hillary, standing on the snowy cap of Everest in 1953. Next to it, in total disregard for sequence or connectivity, was that of the famous 50s twins in the ad that asked, and I believe some of the ladies here might remember that if they want to be, which girl has the Tony home perm? Our mother, you see, selected the pictures. We were to up-paste them in some kind of order. Misplaced trust? Perhaps. But Ma, as we call her, didn't seem to mind, for she saw only how our young minds could be challenged by them, as indeed we were, for they opened our eyes to a world beyond the village that was filled with opportunities for the daring. Those pictures made dreamers of us all, dreams that we vocalized as we ate or played or did the farm chores. They were her way of telling us that the village would only define us if we let it. We never found out where she got those magazines from. Crooked Tree, or hamlet of farming families, was only reachable from Belize City, the nearest town, by river. There was only one grocer's shop in the village, a Baptist church, a clinic, and a school. Not a likely setting for magazines and newspapers, especially the ones with the colorful pictures. Her formal education ended at the primary level, all that colonial Belize provided for girls at that time. But she was whip sharp and finished the 7th grade with distinction and a year to spare. Then, in due course, came the years of childbearing. And when the last of the 11-strong brood had left the nest, she was finally able to go after some of her own dreams that she had had to put on hold so that we could pursue ours. She came to America at the age of 57, got her GED, and entered the New York State's Nurse's Assistant Training Program, getting her CNA certification. For the first time in my life, Hart, she beamed as she told me of that first paycheck, I had the thrill of being paid for the work I did. Shortly before her death in 1997, I asked her how she pulled it off with that large cast of future accountants, college graduates, teachers, a police detective, a United Nations ambassador, a college professor, and a banker in tow. How, she asked incredulously, sacrifice, Hart. It's what mothers must be prepared to do. But I'm getting ahead of my story. Ma was born in 1918, the second of 3 children. Her mother taught sewing at the village Baptist school that she attended. And she learned cooking and more sewing from her at home. Truth be told, Ma preferred the outdoors in the company of her 2 brothers, who, with their tomboy sister along, were emboldened as that other threesome of legend, squealing and climbing, and when not chasing the chickens, chasing one another about the farm. That trio was always making merry wherever they went. Else, you must not laugh like Joe and Harry, her father had to tell her often. You're a girl, and this is how little girls laugh. Ma giggled reminiscently as she related the story to me, imitating Grandpa Joe's baritone for the demonstration. Then, in 1943, when I turned 4, the pampering mama of my earlier childhood morphed and was replaced by this adorable martinet, who I began to call simply Ma. and who, without so much as a nod from me, diligently set out to recalibrate my life. Phrases like time to and go get crept surreptitiously into our discourses, but I was happy with this new partnership, which energized me and brought a kind of blissful ambulatory syncopation to all that I did. It also made me more susceptible to her subtle dictatorship. Our nucleic family, made up of Daddy, Ma, myself, a sibling brother, and a baby, lived at Never the Lay, a mahogany logging camp on the remote upper reaches of the Belize River. Big brother, who is in the audience here tonight, who was 6 then, remained with grandparents in the village for schooling. Daddy was a carpenter-in-chief, and his job made us follow the camps. Ma taught me the Lord's Prayer that year. She also taught me to write. And I still remember how I always had trouble with my C's coming out backwards until she made me grasp a cup with my left hand. And when she traced the handle, I had a eureka moment. Thereafter, that cup remained a visible, indispensable part of my accessorized tutorial experience, even after I needed it no more. Then Ma taught me to read. I don't remember what it was that we read, but I do remember being way ahead of the other first graders when I did start school. She and I had so much fun. Everywhere she went, I was there. And when she occasionally did communal laundry at the river, I would collect pimiento from the leafy forest bed nearby to flavor her cooking. As she washed, she sang. My mother always had a song to sing. Understandably so, for she had a beautiful voice. And had been a soloist on the church choir beginning as a teenager. And then the baby, her first daughter, named Hart Elaine, died. Colic is the word I remember. She was not quite 2 yet. They buried her under a cahoon palm, whose thick, swaying fronds would provide shade for her and hum lullabies at dusk until she slept. That's what I was told. When the little coffin was lowered, I saw my mother cry for the first time. It was an unconsolable wail, and I would never hear her cry again. After the burial, she became a different person. Her lovely voice grew silent. We stopped going to the river and doing the many things we had done together before her moping worsened. Looking back, I realized that she blamed herself for the baby's death, believing, with some justification no doubt, that had she been willing to give up the gaiety of camp life and move us back to the village where there was nursing care, the child may not have died. That thought ate at my mother's peace of mind. She was only 25 years old and found herself up against motherhood's immutable mantra: mothers don't bury their children. Shortly thereafter, we did go back to Crooked Tree and to a more settled way of life. Her spirits lifted as she fell into the rhythm of village life. Her songs returned. That's when the papering of the dining room walls in our new kitchen began. Colorful curtains flew in our windows. I started school. Another baby was on the way. Daddy left for Never the Lay, but this time he went alone. Ma, now with Daddy away, would have to confront head-on and learn to navigate by herself the churning cataracts of parenting that lay ahead. The jungle eventually reclaimed the Neverdelay camp as a new regional highway drew the residents away. We never returned there, not physically, but I suspect that she had often made that journey spiritually. As an adult now, and as a parent myself, I can understand why she could not just walk away and forget the treasure she had left behind in that camp's loamy vault. When I asked her about the baby, she grew quiet. "Ah, Loretta Lane," she then whispered wistfully. "You remember her too?" she asked, looking at me expectantly. At that moment, I realized that man needed a hand to hold, metaphorically speaking, someone with a shared memory of that long ago joy, brief though it was, that the child had brought her and us. "Of course I do," I fibbed somewhat, for I only remember the child as being there one day and not being there the next. "She was so pretty," she agonized, and I thought for a moment that she was going to cry. But she brightened and gave me a big smile. "You know something, Hart," she confided, "Loretta Lane would have looked just like one of those charming girls with the Tony Home perm." You remember? All those years and all those pictures, and she hadn't forgotten that one. Thank you.